Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to my WrestleMania 35 reaction slash review video, depending on how you interpret that. It could be one or the other or both. So I decided that I'm going to do this in two parts. This one is going to be reviewing the non-title main card bouts because WrestleMania was like a 6-7 hour show, and even though I'll run through the entire card, this is just I'm not really good at editing stuff, so this is just a straight up one shot, or I'm just gonna talk, and I'm not gonna put a lot of editing or anything like that, and I don't want to bore you guys by just staring at my face for 1 hour. So I'm gonna do this in two parts, however long this lasts, and then I'll do another one just on the title matches on the main card. So let's just jump right into it. The first non-title bout on the main card was AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. This match lasted just over, I think, 15 minutes or something. AJ Styles got the victory over Randy Orton, and this was not a bad match. It was solid because we all know that AJ Styles and Randy Orton are really decent workers, despite both being in like their early 40s, I think. But definitely AJ's at least 40, 42. And if you had given them the proper amount of time, they could definitely steal the show. They had the capability to do so. Um, my only real hitch to this match was that how it was put together. It was kind of strung together within the last couple of weeks leading up to WrestleMania, and the angle they went with was, you know, the blue blood pedigreed, archetype WWE star in Randy Orton versus the self-made indie darling in AJ Styles. I thought that was a real that could have had some legs to it, but I felt that they started that program just a little too late for it to really kind of catch any life in terms of what it could add to the match. Because as a match, the match alone was something that fans could look forward to. It was a solid booking of a match in terms of who was involved. But I just thought the storyline and the angle leading up to it was a little lacking. But the promo work that they were doing in the SmackDowns episodes leading up to it was strong enough for me to go, you know what, yeah, this is gonna work and that's gonna be awesome. And the match did deliver. It wasn't the best match that either one of them have ever had, but it was fair. But it was fairly solid. I mean, they hit all their beats. R- RKO landed, kicked out, and AJ got the pinfall after a couple of phenomenal forearms. So good stuff all around. Not mad at it. So moving right along. The next non-title match. Remember, I'm talking about non-title bouts here. So the bout order. If you're like, oh well, this match came on later. Well, that's the whole point. I'm just talking about the matches that weren't for titles. Um, was the Falls Count Anywhere match between Shane and The Miz. Um, Let me just talk about this first as a match. As a match, it was fine. I had no problem with the match at all in terms of how it was booked and how it worked out. It ended with Shane McMahon beating The Miz after they took a big bump off a camera scaffolding in the crowd, and when they landed, Shane just happened to be the one on top of The Miz, and they counted the pinfall. So that was all fine and dandy. However, I thought this match didn't need to be on the card at all. If you watched my other previous videos, I was leading up to WrestleMania about the last couple pay-per-views. I felt this feud was redundant. It didn't need to be. I thought The Miz could have had a better program to work with in terms of who he could have been working with. The execution of the program was fine, involving his dad and all that stuff. But I don't care for Shane McMahon being involved in storylines anymore, especially in a wrestling capacity. This match just felt like a typical excuse for Shane McMahon to get his WrestleMania moment, doing a big bump, and that was it. Which is, I get to a lot of casuals, is what they came to see to a certain extent, but I just feel it just takes away from the show. It really does. It's like, okay, great, we're going to see Shane wrestle for 15 minutes just so he can take a big bump. Great. Meanwhile, Kevin Owens and a bunch of other people weren't even on the card. Or if they were in the Andre Memorial Battle Royal earlier in the show. Meanwhile, The Miz could be feuding again with the Kevin Owens or Mustafa Ali, who could use the spotlight to build him up. And The Miz, who has become such a big star because he's got a TV show with Maurice and all that stuff. He's such a big star now, so I don't know what what was going to take away for this. And by the way, because of the finish of the match, it's clear that it's going to lead to another match. So this feud's going to continue to the next pay-per-view, and I don't care for it. I think The Miz should be in a title picture somewhere, or at the very least, as I said, working a program with somebody who could use the exposure. What exposure does Shane McMahon need for this? He's already had several WrestleMania moments already. What more does he need? Yes, I'm impressed that the 49-year-old guy is taking bumps, but it's kind of redundant at this point. Being impressed by that is almost kind of being undermined by the fact that it's with the explicit purpose of doing that. It's so contrived. It's like, okay, hey, great, I'm gonna work at WrestleMania, even though he's barely wrestled, give or take a couple of shows, and then he's gonna get a WrestleMania spot because, of course, he's Shane McMahon. I don't. Makes no sense to me. I mean, it does, but I'm done with it. I don't care. It does nothing for me, and I think for a lot of people, it does nothing for, especially the ones that are who really watch every week. It's like it takes away from building other angles and stories, and it just seems so superfluous to do. It's like, okay, great, Shane's in the match at WrestleMania. It's like a couple years ago when he had a match against AJ Styles when they couldn't book AJ Styles against anybody decent, so he wrestled Shane, and it was conceived in the most like heavy-fisted way. Like, okay, yeah, we just don't like each other. We're gonna wrestle. Yeah. So, anyways, moving right along, the next non-title match that was big on this card was the return of Roman Reigns against Drew McIntyre. This went a solid 10 minutes. I didn't hate the match, but I also didn't find it to be particularly great. Roman, it's funny, it's one of those weird things where it's like, I felt it should have been Drew that got the W, but Roman did, and I kind of feel that maybe this is the point, right? Like, he's coming back from his first match is coming back from his leukemia treatment and all that stuff, and it's awesome to see him get the win in this match. So I guess as just a one-off moment, like, hey, cool, you still got it, that's great. But then I have to be honest, where I almost feel to a certain extent like maybe Drew should have gotten the win. But then also I think maybe this will lead to a different payoff for Drew in the next pay-per-view. Maybe he'll beat him in the next pay-per-view or something. So I think when you think about it in that context, I think it's fine that Roman got the nod. It was a really cool moment. Came out, got the big pyro work, and it's the first time Roman hasn't been the main event in WrestleMania in like 3 years. So it was kind of refresh. It was very refreshing to see that, because as soon as he's ready to full go, he's going to be back in the title picture, going after the Universal title or the WWE title, or whatever title he wants to go after. So, and they want to book him again, so that's perfectly fine. I think this was a good, solid return match for him. I think Drew McIntyre. Plus, I think also too, the more I think about it, I think this was a good launching point to potentially. I mean, these two guys can headline WrestleMania by themselves, booked properly. So I think that was really cool. So you get to see the seeds being planted for that. So that so we can look forward to that in the future. So all in all, good stuff there from Roman and Drew. And now moving right along, this match actually came immediately after this match. In my opinion, the second most pointless match on the card, just from a strict match placement. Obviously, I'll discuss the other implications in it, but just from a match placement, angle placement, it just didn't make sense to me, which was the no holds barred match between Batista and Triple H. It was the longest match on the card, ironically enough, because of course it was. Because Triple H, it went around just about 25 minutes, and it came at a point in the card where you had already seen so many cool moments, and it was like 3-4 hours into the main, like about 2 hours into the main, 2-3 hours into the main card, give or take, and like 2 hours into the main card probably, like an hour and a half or 2 hours into the main card, and like 3 hours since the actual start of the show, which counts the pre-show, right? So here's this match coming on right after. By the way, this came right after the. This was a couple matches after the WWE Championship match between Kofi Kingston and Daniel Bryan. So, and when I get to that in the next video, you'll understand the context of why this match between Triple H and Batista was such a buzzkill of a match. I mean, without even talking about the other title matches that it affected, it was just like, what was this match? What was the point? Come to find out, in real world perspective, it was Batista's last match. He just posted on social media that he is officially done with sports entertainment. He's not going to wrestle anymore, which is, going to become a full-time actor in Hollywood. That's awesome. He's basically already been anyway. So, but the thing is, the conception of the match for the event was ham-fisted. It was hackneyed. It felt like it was strung together. So naturally, the crowd didn't care for it. So when the match actually happened, the crowd didn't care for it. They tried to overbook it beforehand with all these stakes that nobody really cared for. Triple H's career was on the line, which sounded redundant because Triple H hadn't been a full-time performer in years outside of a couple of one-off angles where he, wrestled Seth Rollins to put him over and stuff like that. So this being a career match for Triple H made no sense. It just, other than the officialness of like, hey, he'll never wrestle again if he loses. And it turns out he beats Batista anyway because it's Batista's last match. So, like, what was that match? And of course, at that point in the card, the crowd was already getting very fatigued, and they didn't care for this match at all. So if they didn't care for this match, I didn't care for this match watching it at home, and it was just, we were just waiting for it to be over. It was just like, okay. The funny thing was the way the match was worked was actually not that bad. They were trying to go for shock value. Triple H pulled out pliers to pluck out Dave's nose ring and all that stuff. There's a couple of big spots with the steel steps and the announce tables and stuff like that. Batista took a massive bump on the announce table and stuff like that. But it felt like they were forcing it to keep the crowd interested. Like, okay, hey, look, we're going to destroy everything. We're going to bring out all the sledgehammers. And then the finish of the match, Nature Boy Ric Flair just shows up out of nowhere and hands Triple H a sledgehammer. And so he hits Batista with it. Pedigree, boom, end of the match. And there it is. So, yeah, that happened. This was like the fourth to last match, and on the card, and you're just like, again, when you take into the real world effects, I understood, hey, Batista wanted to do one last match, but and of course maybe he had some scheduling conflicts, maybe he could only do this match at WrestleMania, not SummerSlam, but it took away. It took away from the card, unfortunately. That's just the truth of the matter. It took away from the card. It overinflated the card, and it doesn't help that, it followed a title match a couple matches prior, and the crowd was really invested in that, and they blew that off, and then you followed up with another match, and everyone was just waiting for the main event to get to, which was going to be a few matches later anyway, so it was just a dud. It was a dud, unfortunately. It was just there's no other way to put it. So it sucks, but it sucks because these two, Batista and Triple H, they could go when they really need to, and it just fell flat to me. So all due respect. So moving right along, and another one like I can't believe back-to-back duds in terms of both build up and hype, and then the payoff was Kurt Angle's farewell match against Baron Corbin. He puts over Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin wins this match. The match lasts just just after 5 minutes. Did not last long, and it was so heavy. Again, it was just the whole conception of the match was just so ill conceived. Kurt Angle randomly said that he just wanted to be that he was going to retire and he was going to have his farewell match at WrestleMania, and so everyone speculated that who's going to be his last match. And then as the weeks went by, they wanted it to be John Cena, which I thought would have been redundant too, to be quite frank. Like, you know, if you're going to put someone over that kind of really, really, really needed, that you were like, okay, hey, they're on the precipice of being a main eventer. Like, heck, maybe even Seth Rollins, to be honest with you. Uh, you know, obviously we'll get to Seth Rollins in the next video, but just like, you know, it was one of those like, okay, here's a nice little feather in the cap. But no, it went to Baron Corbin, and personally speaking, I don't get it. Uh, Baron Corbin having the honor of being the last match of Kurt Angle insinuates that he will get a push of some sort, right? I mean, I get it, he doesn't have to, but that's just the unspoken rule. It's like, oh, you put away a legend like that, and you're chosen to be the guy's last match. That means you're kind of gonna be a big deal, right? So, it's just everyone from Jim Ross. I mean, the lead up to this match, everyone was wondering. It's like, really? That's Kurt Angle, who's arguably the best pro wrestler all around, both his generation and maybe ever. His last match, and I understand once again, real world implications. His body has taken a beating. You know, he clearly doesn't want to have to, you know, work these grueling matches anymore. So his work rate was going to suffer. But it just, you know, you couldn't have booked him in there against somebody that could have helped carry him per se. You know, they could have helped him out, make it look good. Because I think if you booked him against like an AJ Styles or Finn Balor, something like that, Kevin Owens even. As I mentioned, I think that would have been, you know, really good rub for his opponent, and I think it would have helped Angle where the match could have lasted longer. Now, again, we understand placement. This match came very late in the card. It was third to last, so clearly it couldn't have gone more than when it did. You know, you weren't going to have Kurt Angle have a 25 minutes retirement match. But then again, that they didn't promote it that way. It didn't seem like it was that big of a deal, which is unfortunate. It should feel like a big deal. So now Baron Corbin gets this win, and now Angle-wise, he's the guy that retired Kurt Angle, and the heat he's gonna get is gonna be ironic because it's not the type of heat that's supposed to benefit him. Where it's like, oh hey, you know, now you're gonna become this monster heel. I just think the fans are just not gonna like you for it. Like they're gonna be like, no, it shouldn't have been you. Like, yeah, you're gonna, and then of course he's gonna troll us. He's trolling people on social media saying, "Hey, I took it. You know, I took this. You may not have liked it, but I took it." But it's not. It's beyond that. It's just people know. Like I said, as I've said in previous videos before, people know what a lot of people know what pro wrestling is, and they know exactly how it works. And there are people that they feel that they know it's like, all right, this is gonna be the big heel, the big villain that's gonna benefit from this win, and you know we're gonna support him by booing him. I don't think that's what's gonna happen here. I think a lot of people are just gonna be totally indifferent to the fact that Baron Corbin is the guy that retired Kurt Angle. I mean, he's gonna try and work that heat over. I mean, I can be proven wrong. If he does something with us, that's gonna be fantastic. But at this moment, I don't see what good it's gonna do for him other than getting ironic heat, where everyone's just gonna be like, "No, we don't care. Great, you retired Kurt Angle and you're trolling us about it, but we don't care about you." You know, that's gonna be unfortunate for him because he's not a terrible wrestler. He's actually really good. He's got really cool moves, but it just felt lacking. I thought they missed the ball with this. I mean, for someone like Kurt Angle, for his last match to be this way, I don't know. Hopefully something will get revealed that maybe Kurt didn't want it to be some extravagant farewell. He just wanted it to go out on his own terms, which I totally respect. But it just, for me personally, and for a lot of the fans that were watching, a lot of the viewers, it just felt very lackluster. That's all. So, actually, let me go ahead and touch on some of the pre-show stuff. The two battle royals that happened. Braun Strowman won the Andre Memorial Battle Royal, and Carmella won the Women's Battle Royal. It's kind of funny. Braun Strowman is now like the king of winning meaningless battle royals. He won the biggest Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia, which got trophy for it, and nobody cared. Like, who cares? Like, what is that? And this guy was, he was slated once to be rumored to be the main event of WrestleMania, and then kind of that whole thing died down. So now he's just winning battle royals. The Michael Shea and Colin Yost stuff was okay. I get the variety aspect that WWE it goes for, because that's a tough thing, right? With a show like WrestleMania, like you want it to be equal parts legit variety entertainment show with skits and celebrity appearances and stuff, but it's also at the end of the day a wrestling card. So what balance can you find there? So when you try to integrate these things, it's a hit or miss sometimes. And I think for the most part, it kind of worked with this battle royal with Colin Yost and Michael Shea appearing. Braun ended up winning, of course, as I mentioned. As for the women's battle royal, that was more frustrating because Asuka was in it. Asuka, who got the title taken off her at the last minute just so it could raise the stakes of the main event, which I feel it didn't need. And here she is, arguably the best wrestler all around in the company, and she's stuck on the pre-show. She didn't even win it, which I was personally, I'm kind of glad, because that was kind of beneath her. It's like, all right, here's your consolatory prize, you win this battle royal that you really don't need to win to strengthen your character because your character is already great. The win for Carmella made sense because Carmella's, even though she's a former women's champion, she still needs to build up her rapport, and I thought that was great. The final, Sarah Logan was one of the final ones. We thought Sarah Logan was going to win it, and I would have been like, that would have been interesting because that could have been an excuse to me to break her up from the Riot Squad, or even if Ruby Riot probably should have won, if I'm being honest. But again, it was one of those perfunctory matches. The pre-show features a lot of wrestlers that didn't get time on the main card, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate that its existence for that way. But they put title matches on the pre-show, which, listen, if those matches aren't main card worthy, and I can understand that, but don't put them on the pre-show. Put them on NXT, make that a special thing where it's like, hey, this title will be up for grabs at NXT or something, or make it happen the night on the Monday on the Raw after. It just, I don't know, title matches on the pre-show, because the two titles changed hands. Tony Nese became the new Cruiserweight champion, and Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder beat the Revival for the Raw tag team titles. So we had Kurt Hawkins' infamous losing streak end with a title win, which, now that you think about it, sounds so redundant. And Tony Nese wins the Cruiserweight Championship off Buddy Murphy, who's a great Cruiserweight champ. And it opened the show. It was the ultimate curtain jerk. It was the very first match of the night. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm a little iffy when you're putting title match. I understand that WrestleMania is a super card, but we also know it's not, in real sports, sure, like MMA, yeah, sure, you want to do, even in MMA, you wouldn't put title matches on the prelims, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. I understand those are different dynamics, but there's just something, it just didn't feel right to put title matches that are supposed to mean something, narratively wise on the pre-show. So, yeah, I thought that, but another thing, note, Lacey Evans, her little bit where she continues to come out during pay-per-views and just walks out for like 10-15 seconds. I don't get that. I don't know what the payoff is. She wrestled in the Royal Rumble. That was it. And she's been doing this bit. And everyone's just so confused about, like, what's the payoff? Is she eventually going to do something? Is she going to attack somebody? What is she even? So, I mean, people were making jokes about her being like some weird ghost character, which I thought was so out of the box. But, the Hall of Fame segment was really cool too. But I think the show drags too long, and I think they need to cut out some of these bits, like the Hall of Fame. Ironically enough, I get showcasing them to the audience at the arena, but like you literally dedicated a whole night prior to them to get their due, and you let fans in. If you're gonna let fans into the Hall of Fame, then why? I know this sounds kind of counterintuitive and even contradictory to a sense, but like, think about it, right? You let fans into the Hall of Fame so they can celebrate the Hall of Famers you send, and then you take time out to acknowledge them during WrestleMania itself, which I understand why you do that, but isn't that the whole point, so that the fans can see them if they didn't see them at the Hall of Fame, but you let people see them at the Hall of Fame? So it feels a little redundant And I've thought about this last few years where I'm just like, I think that's kind of redundant. Yes, I get that they get their moment to acknowledge the in-stadium crowd, but I don't know, man. It's just because sometimes when those things happen, it kind of drags the show. And I understand too that that's when you can use it as a break for the fans. Like, okay, we get a break. But then when you overload a card with 15, 16 matches, adding these segments, these non-match segments start to add up. So then you have this giant show that lasts 6 hours. And I don't know, it's tough. So anyways, thanks for listening to this one, guys. Stay tuned. In a little bit, I'm going to do a rundown of the title matches from WrestleMania 35. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I appreciate it.